Thank you. I am Representative John BURT, and I want to thank everyone for showing up today. I want to thank the Fish and Game Commission for their vote to not recommend the current New Hampshire Fish and Game Director, Norman Doe, for another term. Under Norman Doe's failed leadership, the department opposed vital pro-gun reforms, such as Senate Bill 12, constitutional carry, and then after it became legal to carry a loaded concealed gun or even carry loaded concealed guns in a car without a license, Norman Doe went to oppose that. He also opposed House Bill 1313, which would have extended the right to those who ride snowmobiles and ATVs to carry a sidearm. They were admonished by the Attorney General for their statutory mandates, which does not include lobbying for legislation for gun control. The anti-gun activism from the top of the New Hampshire Fish and Game needs to stop, and we need stronger leadership who respects and reveres the Constitution and respects the taxpayers of New Hampshire who fund the department with state tax dollars. The department needs to stop advocating for gun control since the department receives close to $500,000 per year on federal tax monies. The state general fund dollars and the gun tax dollars are largely coming from non-hunters. The anti-gun activism needs to stop, and the way to stop it is to change the leadership. Now we have a chance to do that, and let's not waste this time. Now I'd like to hold any questions and then introduce Representative. I apologize, mess up on your name, but yes, thank you.
Good morning. Just following up what Representative BURT said, Norman Doe has pushed against the Second Amendment across the board, and it kind of boggles my mind how you have somebody who's against firearms running Fish and Game. So it is a time for a change, and we're urging the governor to make sure that his replacement is pro-Second Amendment or at least neutral, and not working against the hunters and the law-abiding citizens of the state.
Thank you, Representative Prue. And I'd like to introduce Alan Rice. He's with the Gun Owners of America.
Thank you, Representative Burt, Representative Prue. I appreciate everyone coming. So we get questions all the time why we care about who's in charge of the Fish and Game Department. Gun Owners of America stands for one and only one issue, the Second Amendment. And when wildlife managers decide they're going to stray from managing wildlife and get involved in Second Amendment issues before the legislature, we need to jump into action and notify our members. Governor Sununu has a golden opportunity now to change the direction, the leadership of the Fish and Game Department by replacing an anti-gun activist with someone who will actually respect the Second Amendment and respect the laws of the state of New Hampshire. Their statutory mandate is pretty clear. Protection of the state's fish, game, and marine resources, and weighing in on legislation that directly affects fish, game, and marine resources. Opposing constitutional carry, opposing carrying guns on snowmobiles, opposing having loaded rifles in cars. None of those affect fish, game, and marine resources. They are Second Amendment issues. The department is funded both by state general funds and federal gun taxes known as Pittman-Robertson. That tax has been around for 82 years. 10% on handguns, 11% on rifles, 11% on ammunition. So it's gun owners who use guns for all purposes are funding an anti-gun department. It's kind of ironic that this is going on, and it needs to stop. I hope Governor Sununu will watch the replay video of this press conference and heed these words and not accept the nominee who does not support the Second Amendment and will stop the anti-gun activism, stop the massive civil liberties violations by conservation officers, and just do the job that the legislatures assign them. I want to introduce our legislative counsel, Michael Hammond. who's also a resident of New Hampshire, and he's going to talk for a brief moment on some of the more egregious civil liberties violations by the department. Counselor?
Thank you. Thank you, Alan, and I will try to be brief. I am legislative counsel to Gun Owners of America and have been in that position for 26 years. I was also executive vice president of Gun Owners of New Hampshire, which is the NRA affiliate. I'd like to read a very brief statement on behalf of Gun Owners of America, and then I would like to make a comment on something which is as current as this morning's news. My statement follows. Personnel is policy. I preached that since I was in the Justice Department transition team in 1980 under Ronald Reagan. In New Hampshire, the head of Fish and Game has enormous impact on the state's treatment of hunters, fishermen, and gun owners in general. This is why we at Gun Owners of America are urging the governor to put forward to the executive council, only a nominee or a person who respects the gun rights enshrined in the Constitution of the United States and in the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire. Now my little comment, I was going to end there, except I picked up this morning's Concord Monitor and read an article. I never thought I'd stand before a press conference and say, everyone should read what the Concord Monitor had to say about guns this morning. As a matter of fact, I still don't think I said it. But the lead article in this morning's Concord Monitor outlines two studies which have found a couple things. First of all, that New Hampshire is among the top 10 states in the country in terms of per capita gun purchase. And over the last decade, since 2009, that per capita gun purchasing has increased by 72%, which is second in the country only to the state of Utah. Second thing the monitor points out correctly is that New Hampshire is among the lowest states in the country in terms of gun use in violent crime. And the third thing it points out is that New Hampshire is the lowest state of the country in terms of gun use in murders. So under those circumstances, I would say that there are some people probably in this building who believe that we've reached a tipping point and that pushing a gun control agenda, and these are the bills which have been introduced already, which are anti-gun in this general court. There are some who believe that pushing a gun control agenda will be politically beneficial. Well, I can say that there are very few advantages to being very, very old, but one of them is that you know the history of this issue. And I can say that I ran for Congress in this district, the 2nd District of New Hampshire, in 1994 against a very entrenched Democrat incumbent who thought that supporting semi-auto bans was going to take him to permanent residency in the United States Capitol representing this district. The issue, and that issue, no other issue, defeated him, threw him out of office permanently, and installed a Republican in this seat for a decade after that. So my plea to Governor Sununu is consider the possibility that this state is more pro-gun than ever, particularly in areas like Coos County, and that supporting a Second Amendment candidate, irrespective of whom Fish and Game tries to suggest, at least initially, supporting a Second Amendment candidate is not only good constitutional law, but also good politics. Thank you.
And our next speaker will be, I have it right here, Jay Simkin.
Good morning. My name is Jay Simkin. I'm a federal firearms licensee and have been so for a tad over 35 years. I want to follow up on Attorney Hammond's comment about New Hampshire's position as a state with a very, very low incidence of violent crime, at least since 2001 with a single year exception. New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont have been among the 3 states with the lowest incidence of violent crime in the entire United States. The 1-year exception, by the way, involved Virginia. The source for these data is the FBI's Uniform Crime Reports, Crime in the United States. As to Mr. Normando's anti-gun agenda, I have never hunted nor had a license to do so in any jurisdiction, foreign or domestic. I've never had a fishing license in any jurisdiction, foreign or domestic. I do not hate hunters. On the contrary, if it weren't for hunters, there would be very little ornamental shrubbery in southern New Hampshire, and deer and vehicle collisions would be far more common than now they are. If you want to know what anti-hunting looks like, look at Virginia and look at New Jersey. My interest in having a head of Fish and Game who at least is neutral and at best supportive of our Second Amendment civil right to be armed is this. First, if I want to walk through the woods being armed, I should be able to do so just as I can walk being armed on a street in Nashua, Concord, or Manchester. It's a civil right. Being armed in the woods does not mean that one is hunting. It means that one is armed in the woods. New Hampshire, I believe, is the second most heavily forested state in the United States after Maine. If Fish and Game has its way, any place with more than a few trees is deemed a forest, I suppose, and being armed there subjects one to arrest, and that is rarely a cheap date. Secondly, the Fish and Game Department's opposition to repeal of a law banning the carrying of loaded rifles and shotguns in vehicles is mindless. I use the term mindless to convey it makes no sense. I hold in my hand here a firearm, unloaded, that takes shot shells. Someone who does not know the law might say, oh, that's a shotgun, and gee, you have it loaded in your car. Well, gosh, this is not a shotgun. A shotgun by federal law has to have a stock. This weapon never had a stock. It's classified by the feds as AOW, any other weapon. You could call it a shot pistol if you want. If the barrel were 18 inches long instead of 14, it would be a pistol-grip firearm. My point is, this law, which Fish and Game apparently seeks to enforce, creates risk for law-abiding citizens going about their lawful business. The law should be repealed, but quite apart from that, Fish and Game should have no say in the carrying of loaded rifles or shotguns in vehicles, at least on public roads. I think this is straightforward. In short, I urge Governor Sununu to nominate for the head of Fish and Game someone who understands the Second Amendment civil right to be armed and will therefore confine that department's testimony before committees of the General Court to matters that go to Fish and Game's mandate, which is looking after the health and welfare of quadrupeds and fish in New Hampshire. It's really as simple as that, and I appreciate having the opportunity to make these points. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Mike and Attorney Alan Rice and Representative Prue for coming today. And in closing, Representative True for coming today. Also, you know, everything you heard today is true. I mean, New Hampshire is one of the safest states. Right now, it's currently the safest state in the country. When we have the head of Fish and Game opposing every pro-gun Second Amendment bill coming forward and supporting every anti-gun bill, you know, we need to put a stop to that. And the way we can do it is, again, through the commission, the New Hampshire if I can say it right, New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission will appoint somebody that is pro-Second Amendment, and that's what I hope they do, and when they do that, I hope Governor Sununu will accept it and make sure that that passes, and we get somebody at the top that will be pro-Second Amendment. I want to thank you for coming, and take care.